Hello. It's the night of August 7th, Monday. I'm with Connor, myself, Austin here. Uh, we lost kind of a titan today in film. William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist, French Connection, Bug, Cruising, bunch of cool stuff, right? And 87 years old, really sucks. And Connor and I both felt like tonight we should kind of have a bit of a first thoughts on looking back on his life and looking back on his work. Mainly for Connor and I, it's The Exorcist and French Connection. It's that 1-2 1971 1973. Also Sorcerer Rules, but those two from the early 70s are so iconic and so important to both of us. We felt like we just had to kind of talk about them. So there's also been some other recent deaths that have affected both of us as fans. Paul Reubens, Margolis, and Angus Cloud. Um, Reubens, is an icon in his own right, and passed away probably a little over a week ago now. And while neither of us are huge fans of his, it doesn't feel right to not mention him. Mark Margolis, though, when you send me the text about him, because I always find out through you about these people that pass away. This is Hector Salamanca. This is Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Vince Gilligan royalty. One of my favorite TV scenes of all time is when he helps Walter White kill Gus Fring. That's like one of the coolest, most badass things ever. So I don't know about you. That's what I'm going to remember him for, is that scene.
That's pretty much the go-to. That's his Emmy moment. Just the
Yeah.
glare, last chance to look at me, Hector, and the glare of just like I fucking got you. And it's all told through the eyes. He was so fucking good at that.
Yeah.
And on Better Call Saul, he gets to play the pre-stroke Hector, where he was this formidable piece of shit gangster who just commanded the room even then. And I love that he was able to play both sides of that character so well. And he was a character actor I had seen in so many different things, but
Yeah.
this was the role he's going to be remembered for forever.
Yeah, he definitely is kind of a journeyman, right? He's did all kinds of random stuff, but yeah, that Hector character. Some of my favorite stuff too from that character, from his performance, is we get to know him through being in the wheelchair, being kind of in the home, the what do you call it? What do you call those? My grandma's in one right now. I don't know. I don't know. It's where people can't survive on their own. What the fuck are those called? But when he's
Rest home, it's a rest home, nursing home.
it's a nursing home. There we go, nursing. Yeah, and he's doing the ding, the bing, 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 bing. Talking shit to Hank Schrader, all that. But it's like the flashback scenes when he's not in the wheelchair, when he's Hector. He's like scary Hector. Those scenes also stick out in my mind of just how brutal he was. He's an essential character. I was trying to explain to a coworker, I was like, "Oh man, Mark Margolis died. Like that sucks. He plays like a big character in Breaking Bad," and he was like, "A main character," and I was like, "Yes and no. I mean, no, like yeah, he's not Walter White, but he is like one of the most memorable pieces of that entire series." Uh, you include the whole Albuquerque, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, and like he's one of the faces you think of. He's so distinct.
Yeah, I think like after the scene, his death scene, the quintessential Hector scene has got to be the flashback with the cousins.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when they're kids, just drowning the fucking boy in the cooler and just teaching him a lesson. Familia es toda.
yeah.
It's all he has to say, and you're just like, okay, this is how you become the don of a Mexican cartel.
Yeah.
You have no soul, no love, just cold, calculated power.
Yeah, yeah, brutal. Yeah, the guy. There's not too much more we can say about him because we were both huge fans. So now this other guy, Angus Cloud. This is the most sad because he was 25, and it seems as though he took his own life, and that is absolutely brutal. You don't want to ever hear that, no matter who it is. someone who's in their, younger than you and I are, right? It's like just starting their life, really. So he was most famous for his one real role in television, Euphoria, as Fezco, the drug dealer, and he's excellent in that show. I'm not, I've watched both seasons of Euphoria. I'm not crazy about it, but I always have been like Fez is my guy. Like he is the best character, the most consistent, the most important as far as being entertained and learning about stuff. So I always loved him, and they just kind of the way he was casted is he was just found on like the streets of New York City, and they're like, that guy has a look, like he has a look to him, a fashion to him, and he kind of took that with him. He got his fame. He got into the TV show, and he started kind of stepping out into the fashion world, stepping out into doing different things with different companies, and like modeling. But he's like got such a unique look to him, it's just so sad when someone sent me a text for that. It finally wasn't you. Someone else was like, Angus Cloud has passed away. I was like, man, I mean, 25 years old is so horrible. So I know he, like a week before, had lost his father, and then took his own life. And so, your thoughts have to go only to his mother, to his family. That's like where it has to go. So really, really sad. There's not a huge filmography to go back on and look at, but what he did was impactful. And if you haven't seen Euphoria, definitely check it out just to watch how talented he is. But William Friedkin, this is what was the tipping point for you and I. There was kind of no doubt about it. It's like, we have to talk about this guy. I mean, how many directors have something this special, right? Like a filmography this special, this much talent, this wide of a range, 50 years of great stuff, weird stuff, all kinds of different stories, all kinds of different genres. So we kind of had to bring him up.
Before we do get into Friedkin, though, I do want to just say a little bit about Paul Reubens.
Of course, yeah.
I've never been, I've never been a big Pee Wee Herman fan.
Yeah.
The whole man-child thing just creeps me out in any capacity, whatever that is. I don't care for that.
Totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was more than, he was more than Pee Wee Herman. He was a very accomplished character actor. For me, it's always
Mystery Men.
The spleen. Yeah. The spleen.
Yeah.
You write a character who has like the power of super farts. Who do you cast without making that a complete ridiculous joke? You cast Paul Reubens, turns him into this like weird lisping hippie with a heart of gold, who really just wants to help people in his weird way. And I love that. I love that character. And he also played Penguin's dad in two separate Batman properties, Batman Returns, very briefly, and then on the Gotham series on Fox. Which is pretty cool accolade. So that makes him a pretty cool part of the DC canon.
Super random. Yeah.
Yeah, like both times. Weird. Like the first time, it's like, yeah, okay, he probably, did it for Burton as a favor. But the second time, they were like, there's only one man who can play, Oswald Cobblepot's father, and that's Paul Reubens.
Yeah. You are Mr. Cobblepot. Yeah.
He had apparently been battling cancer for quite some time, kept it to himself, was able to say goodbye on Twitter before he passed. He posted this. I'll bring it up right here. He posted.
Oh, good. And isn't Twitter called X now?
I refuse to say it's fucking Twitter. I'm not calling it X.
I hear you. I don't have either. So,
please accept my apology for not going public with what I have been going through the last 6 years. And it was on Instagram, by the way, not Twitter. I have always felt a huge amount of love and respect for my fans, friends, and supporters. I have loved you all so much and enjoyed making art for you. Goddamn, man. I mean, to know you're gone, you're on your way out. There's nothing you can do. You've kept it from everybody. Only you and probably, your very close family know that this is the end.
Yeah.
How do you sum up a lifetime's worth of performance and admiration to your fans? Like I can't imagine being able to like have that kind of moment of intimacy. You know, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to say goodbye like that, and he did, and it was just those few sentences are incredibly powerful. And yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, simple, but very effective. And like you said, there's like a certain amount of grace, that he has like on his way out. It's like really special. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I like all the kind of random stuff he's done. I've never been, and that's nothing against anybody who cares for it. I personally haven't found a connection to like his major works. I definitely like him, like his supporting stuff. So I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We had tried to do a Pee Wee's Big Adventure episode last week, kind of impromptu, when we found this out, and it just didn't work. Planning didn't work, and also, and I don't blame you. A lot of people on the team just probably didn't want to fucking watch that movie. I get it. I didn't want to watch it, but I watched it, and then halfway through, I got the text from who was, the person who was supposed to do it with me. They were like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot I had something going," and I'm like, "Okay." I turned it off. I was like, well, "I'm not going to watch the rest of this."
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love Paul Reubens, but I fucking hated Pee Wee Herman.
Hey, he'd want you to be honest, so I'm glad you are. So I want to kind of, we'll be brief here. There's no need to go on forever, but I do want to know what's the thing you're going to remember most from Friedkin. What is it? Exorcist? Is it French Connection? Is it a certain scene? Like what do you? Is it Sorcerer? Is it fucking cruising to live and die in L.A.? I don't know. What do you got?
Friedkin. It's The Exorcist. That's his masterpiece. I know how much you love the French Connection, and I'm not gonna
No.
that at all. But what he did with The Exorcist is, he fucking changed horror forever with The Exorcist. That nobody had ever gone that far with this kind of subject matter. He had people convinced it was real. He had, like, Linda Blair had to tour the talk show circuit and tell fucking idiots in the South, like, "I'm not the devil, I'm just a little girl," because people are stupid. But Friedkin made it believable. In 1973, that was a nightmare. Come to life. And it holds up as one of the most incredible horror films ever made. And the guy was so instrumental in crafting, like, new Hollywood's respect. It was because you had all these game changers. I've been reading Tarantino's cinema speculation, and he talks about all of this, so it's like all fresh. So I'm like, oh, good, I can unload a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the arrival of the new Hollywood power players like Peter Bogdanovich and Norman Jewison and Bob Rafelson and Friedkin. These were guys who grew up loving film and wanted to do something new and creative and weird. And God knows they did. And one thing that he points out that I love is that in old Hollywood, the adaptations that would happen, from like novels and stuff, it was classic stuff like, Moby Dick and Jane Austen and, fucking Thomas Hardy and shit. Like, the stuff you'd be taught in high school and middle school, the stuff you didn't want to read. These guys adopted popular novels like Jaws and The Godfather and the novel Paper Moon was based on. And because they just loved the story, they just thought this was a neat story and this would make a good movie. They had nothing to prove. They just wanted to make something cool. And I respect the fuck out of that. And the foundation they led to so much amazing shit and so many people not being afraid to pursue the creativity that they had within them. So I'll be grateful to these guys forever for their contribution to cinema. And Friedkin is one of those guys.
Yeah, he is in that class, and he might be like the most talented one. He might be the most. His range is crazy. His skill set. The Exorcist is definitely his masterpiece. It's definitely the one. And what's crazy is it hits its 50-year anniversary like this year, and it's such a special movie. And I know at the end of the year we're going to try to do something with it. We were planning on doing that anyway, and now that Friedkin has passed, like, we certainly will. We'll keep that circled on the calendars to do an Exorcist episode, and The Exorcist, for what it's worth, like what it did, not only for like pushing boundaries, but as much money as it made, and as many Oscar. I think it got 10 Oscar nominations that year. It was up for Best Picture and like all these things. Like it brought quality into horror, and I know a lot of people will disagree. Like horror fans will be like, oh, like we don't need that, but you do. You do need things to kind of push your genre into different audiences and to get different people interested in it. So for the Exorcist to go up against this Sting at the Oscars is like it's important because they're mentioned in the same sentence in the same categories. Take it or leave it, but like I'll take it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean, the Exorcist being crafted the way it was and getting the awards attention it got. I wonder how many films after The Exorcist might not have gotten funding from major studios because they didn't see the potential.
Exactly.
Because The Exorcist was not only was it an awards darling, it was a huge box office success. So you got to have that to justify future projects in the same vein. Everything has to have that. You got to have a movie that is wildly successful in a certain genre so that down the road, somebody with money says, this could be the next Exorcist.
Correct.
They might not be true. It might be shit, but you know what? Someone's got to try. And when you try, you get something like Halloween or The Omen. And we have those movies because somebody took a chance on this. So you got it. It's all reinforcing each other.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that movie is so important. It's so good. Like I still adore it and started a whole franchise, like it did what horror does best, like spawn off fucking, 50 movies. That's what it does. And The Exorcist is still the best of that whole world. I love Exorcist 3, but the original is just unbeatable. So a couple years before that though, The French Connection comes out and wins Best Picture, beats let's see, Last Picture Show, Fiddler on the Roof, Clockwork Orange, and
Nicholas and Alexandra.
The Weakest One. Yeah, there you go.
I remember that.
Good group though overall. The 70s Best Picture category has just a ton of gems. Just a bunch of wonderful, wonderful movies. The year before it's Patton and Five Easy Pieces, like some just awesome, awesome movies that have lasted for over 50 years now. But The French Connection is just it's my favorite of his, probably. I love The Exorcist, but the other day I watched because The French Connection I believe is on the Criterion Channel right now, and I was just kind of like looking through stuff, and I just like watched like 10 minutes of it. It's just one of those movies where I can watch clips of it, I can jump in and out, I can rewatch it at any given moment. I'm totally obsessed. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But he, that's not it. I think a lot of people would stop at those two. He's got so much weird, random shit. Like when I was a kid, probably the first movie I ever saw of his was Blue Chips, which is a basketball movie starring Nick Nolte, Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway. It's like, what? From 1994, I want to say. Like, what in the world? This is the guy who made, I had no idea, like I was watching a Friedkin directed movie, but long story short, I bought a plaque of a basketball player named Bob Cousy, who plays a character I think he plays himself in Blue Chips. And it was like an 8x10 plaque, and it was signed by Bob Cousy, one of the most important basketball players to ever live. And I still have it somewhere in my closet, right? But it had the Blue Chips thing on it. Like it said Bob Cousy, Blue Chips. Not Bob Cousy, Boston Celtic Hall of Famer. It said Bob Cousy, Blue Chips. So, of course, when I bought it, I was like, 11 or 12 with some Christmas money. I was like, I need to see whatever Blue Chips is. So I rented it at Blockbuster. And, sure enough, I fell in love with it. I was like, this movie fucking rules. It was a little more inappropriate than I probably was supposed to be watching at that age. But my parents had no idea. They thought it was just a basketball movie, and yeah, now that was the first time I saw Nick Nolte, and like I knew who he was. Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, love those guys. But it's a Friedkin movie, and like it goes in the filmography. It goes in this long line of his stuff. Another one I like a lot is Bug. I think that movie is like wicked underrated. I want to say 2006, and it is one of like the darkest, nastiest movies you can watch. It's what's the word? Deranged. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Where it just kind of just makes you feel like shit. you know. And Friedkin's so good at that. He's so good at just kind of like bringing you down to the trenches. Like, it's Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon. Probably like one of my third or fourth favorite Michael Shannon performances. So, the Killer Joe, the movie rules. To Live and Die in L.A. I brought up earlier. Sorcerer, Cruising. This guy's got like 10 awesome movies, and if you like film, if you like this stuff, you have to check his stuff out. You have to kind of look past that initial wave and take all of it on, because there's some gold here.
Yeah, he's a director I've always wanted to jump into and just haven't. I've done it a little bit. I have Bug. I own that movie, and I want to. I've been trying to. I don't want to say like summon up the courage, because I know it's going to be a vicious experience.
Yeah, depraved is the word I was thinking of. It's fucked up. Yeah,
I've seen clips, and just the concept is so wild. I think like Michael Shannon's like a paranoid schizophrenic who thinks he's being like watched by the government, right? Like there's bugs planted in everything including in his body.
Yeah.
I've seen the clip where he like pulls his teeth out, and I was just like, "Fucking hell, man!"
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's really like I'm like, why was this made? But I love it. You know, it's great. That one's on Amazon Prime right now. So anybody who's listening and wants to do kind of like a deeper cut Friedkin movie, definitely check out Bug.
Earlier this year, I watched Cruising for the first time.
Fuck yeah, Cruising.
And that movie was risky in 1980 to tackle gay subculture like that in a way that wasn't like it was to an extent, but not as derogatory as it had been in the past. To take it seriously as like actual people, human beings, to have a lead who is struggling with his sexuality, you did not do that shit at that time. Like that movie like was boycotted. It was considered like taboo and inappropriate. But Al Pacino risked a lot starring in that movie, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was a little confusing towards the end of like who really is the killer. Like they tried to imply like, oh, it was Pacino the whole time, but I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But whatever, I admire what Friedkin was doing with the film, and I've heard Killer Joe is quite an experience.
Quite a ride. That's more recent Friedkin. That's like 2011, 2012. Ridiculous movie. And
then my uncle Sean, he's a huge fan of To Live and Die in L.A. That's one of his favorite movies.
That movie kicks ass. Yeah,
I got to check that one out too. So I've got homework for Friedkin.
Well, that's Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe's in To Live and Die in L.A., and you will love his performance in that movie.
I've never disliked a Dafoe performance. I'm always happy to see him do his thing.
80s Dafoe is like, it's special. It's something else.
Yeah, talk about a fucking risk taker.
No kidding.
When so Friedkin won Best Director for The French Connection. That was his win. And in the 70s, I love that it wasn't just like these guys were getting nominated, these guys were getting rewarded for their efforts. And good point. Yeah, that is good. That gave them a little bit more of it made people take them seriously. Critics and producers, because a lot of these guys were they didn't have connections, they didn't have money. They were just like, I have a camera, I have a script, and I want to make something cool. And they did, and people paid attention. I mean, in 71, or I guess in 72. But the 71 Oscars, the 44th, Friedkin defeated John Schlesinger for Sunday Bloody Sunday, Peter Bogdanovich for The Last Picture Show, Norman Jewison for Fiddler on the Roof, and Stanley fucking Kubrick for A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, what a group.
Oh my God. I'd love to see a roundtable discussion between among those five guys. Goddamn, them talking about the process of filmmaking would, oh my God.
Yeah, it'd be the stuff of legends, I don't know if we'll ever quite. I'm not sure like it's possible in like the way movies are now. I'm not sure we'll have a class like that ever again. I don't know if it'll happen again. I think it was like replicated in the 90s, because it was a bunch of people who were freaks watching this stuff, 60s, 70s stuff. and then they were like, let me do my own thing in the 90s. But I just don't like, I don't know. I don't really see it now. There's a really interesting book that Chuck Klosterman has right now where he talks about how since the internet came around, it's like the past 30 years feels so accessible, and like it's not that long ago. Like people still dress the same from like 1995 to now. It's a really interesting thought. Whereas from 1965 to now, people looked very different. Adam and I were talking about this like not that long ago at all. I can't remember, but we were having a discussion like just about this kind of stuff. Just how fascinating it is that like the way our like culture moves now, everything kind of like bleeds together and is just kind of like this mash because of the internet. Of course, that brings up a whole different discussion. But my point being, I just don't know if we'll like break out of that anytime soon. And it's hard to have like a class of filmmakers because it's hard to break out of that. Like it's hard for our creative people to break out of that.
Yeah. And we're oversaturated with content these days. So,
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
really hard for filmmakers to stand out. I mean, you do have like, you got your Greta Gerwigs and your Noah Baumbachs and your Jordan Peels. Like there are auteurs up and coming
Yeah.
still there with a vision, but they are surrounded by franchises, remakes, streaming, and
Yeah.
just content that never fucking stops.
Yeah. Whereas like the guys you named, Kubrick, Jewison, Friedkin, these guys, they were popular. Those were the popular guys. Like 1972, The Godfather was the most profitable movie that year, and it was like looked at as the best piece of art from the entire decade. Maybe, and people still look at it now as maybe the greatest movie to ever exist, American movie to be ever made. It made like millions and millions of dollars, whereas now the movies that get that kind of like that kind of love, like a movie this year, I think that's going to get a lot of love later on down the line, that's going to stand the test of time, is like Past Lives. Oh, that movie barely made any money, but it's like one of those movies that's going to stick with people. But like in the 70s, what stuck with people was also what was profitable. It's like it's just one of those things. It's going to be hard to replicate.
I paid to see Past Lives. I helped.
Yes, you did. You did. You and Adam both, went to bat for that movie and went and saw it, and like that's what it's all about, is like trying to like help out the things that you think are important within this art form.
Also, I think this is interesting with these franchises. There are definitely exceptions, but like just take the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for instance. Outside of the freaks like you and me who pay attention to every aspect of this shit, who could name the director of any of those movies?
Of the Avengers movies?
Of any of them, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, any of those movies.
Oh,
Like just go to Joe Schmo off the street who like loves comic books.
yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be able to know like who directed Captain Marvel.
Yeah. I think it's a great point. Like if you told me and you like we could hang out with Jon Favreau, we'd be like, oh my god, the genius who started it all.
Yeah.
Some random guy might be like, is that the guy from that one comedy from 2005? Is that the guy from Swingers? Like that's how they would remember him. But you and I would be like, no, that guy's like a fucking genius. Like he's like one of the most important figures of how we look at movies right now, whether it's good or bad.
Well, so many franchises are work for hires where they just get somebody who's like an up and coming, film student or something who to just helm something, or like, somebody who's looking for quick cash. Sometimes it's an author. Sometimes you get like Ryan Coogler who actually has a vision, but it's very rare. And it's hard for a filmmaker to kind of make their mark in a world that's just moving so fast and just never stopping to breathe and appreciate these films. I mean, that's why I like that we do First Thoughts, because we get an opportunity to just kind of sit there and talk and think through these new films we're seeing instead of just wiping it clean and focusing on the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a great point, because today I was going to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I was like, no, like that's not really fair to both movies for me.
It's not about, racking up numbers. It's about, giving each film its due diligence and paying attention.
Correct. And while of course like there's different rates of how people watch because of time or passion, whatever it may be. depending on your job, depending on what hours you keep. But there's always room to let stuff digest, no matter who you are. If you watch one movie a week, one movie a day, whatever it is, two movies a day, there's always time in between to like let it rest and let it ride, like let it have its time, especially something you're seeing for the first time. Whether it be like an old, maybe you're watching fucking Blue Chips for the first time. Like let it happen. Maybe you're watching Oppenheimer for the first time. Let it ride. Let that experience like sit in. So the whole double feature thing, I was like, no, I'm gonna scratch that. So we saw Barbie, a few hours ago. Loved it. Thought it was fantastic. And tomorrow I'm gonna try to see Oppenheimer. So that's to me how I wanted to treat it. Today was about Barbie. I let it hit me, and it hit me like a fucking, bag of rocks. I was crying at the end, and with Oppenheimer, I expect to be rocked in a different way.
Well, every time we lose one of these, these power players from a bygone decade, I feel like the speed of art goes a little faster. Like we're losing a little bit of that anchor every time we lose one of these guys.
Yeah, I guess a good way to kind of close this conversation is, if you're listening, and to me and you, watch Sorcerer, watch Cruising, rewatch The Exorcist, and give it some time. Like let it breathe, respect it, put it on a pedestal if you want to. Let it be its own thing. Let it be a piece of art that's going to change your day. It can happen. I promise. That shit can fucking happen. You watch Exorcist at 10 p.m. By 12:30, you're going to be like, wow, what? I came out a different person than I did when I started. And that's the whole point of it, right?
Sure. I'd like to close on a quote by William Friedkin that I found that just makes me love the guy and his process. Apparently, I don't know when he said this, but according to brainyquote.com, which I've always found to be pretty reliable with this thing, technique is of less interest than character and story. God bless.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. I love it. Yeah. Heart is like one of the things I always think of when I think of Friedkin. Like he's putting it out there. Vulnerability, putting out, just allowing kind of his taste to be known, his influence to be known, but also he's got his own style. When you're in a Friedkin movie.
Damn straight. Damn straight. And he also said, I really think that sex always looks kind of funny in a movie. So dude had a great sense of humor too.
It does. He's right. It's a filler.
Yeah. Well, I don't like that we got to do these, but it's worth talking about, doing our little kind of memoriam in our own way, celebrating these guys' contributions to our lives and sending them off. I don't want to call this like last thoughts, but it's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it kind of is, until he gets brought up again, right? Or until I watch fucking Breaking Bad again and I see Hector Salamanca and I'm like, yeah, that dude. That's the way it is. It's the only truth that we have is we're all gonna leave at some point, and it's important to give them their flowers when they're here, but also remember them when they're gone. So that's what we're doing.
Damn right. I hope we don't have to do another one of these next week, but at the rate we're losing people, we probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal.
Well, this was, I don't want to say fun, but I had a good time.
Yeah, reflective for sure.
Reflective, yeah. We'll have content for you this week as always, and take it easy.